Hey everybody, welcome back to the shop. This is Terry. Back on Talon projects today, and we got something hot off the presses here. It's the new 400 watt EPS electronic power steering kit for the Honda Talons. And I say it's hot off the presses. Today is February 4th of 23, so I guess depending on when you're watching this video, maybe old news whenever you're watching it. But for right now, this just came out. Just literally in the last few days from Super ATV. There was some development done on the Honda sidebyside.com forum done by Paul F. He's developed a lot of stuff. Paul is the one that pioneered the cluster relocation kits, and he just a very forward thinker, and he actually took their universal kit and adapted it to the Talon, which was a good bit of work. And fabrication that I honestly was not going to vote for. But now Super ATV has all the correct shafts, upper shaft, lower shaft, everything already made for you, all of the brackets and everything to mount everything. And this, whenever we get over there and start installing this thing, we'll compare this to what Honda has. But the factory Honda motor is I believe 180 watts, and this motor is 400. Really nice wiring harness with all the weather packs and everything on it. Good looking ECM. Got some printed instructions here, so we'll see how all that goes. For those of you that might be new to Talons or wonder why this upgrade would be needed, it seems like for the most part, if you leave your Talon wheels and tires stock, or at least the stock sizes and the stock offsets, then you don't have too much problem. But if you do what we did, which is the 32 by 10, 14 Rockzillas, and even compounding that by getting the sticky compound, and whenever we moved to the HD9 bead locks, we put zero offset wheels on it, which even in the X that was 64 to start off with makes it about 69 inches wide now. And all of that, anybody would tell you, including my friend Paul F., as a matter of fact, that you shouldn't do that. But that's what we wanted to do. I love it, the way it works on ours and for how we ride. So, but what's happened with that is the steering has gotten very heavy. And sometimes it's okay and sometimes it's not. The power steering, and I've read it many times on the forums and on the Facebook group, that the power steering will just drop out, and we have hit a couple trees during the process of the steering just dropping out like that, and you'll just be going along, and I mean literally the steering wheel just won't turn for a split second, and then it will. The steering really heavy if you're on asphalt. I mean, we're not on asphalt that much around here, but I know a lot of you have street legals or ride on the streets a lot. I'm sure you notice it more there, just the scrub from the asphalt versus being out in the dirt. I mean, that makes sense that it would show up more there. So we're going to dive in. Like I said, the instructions look pretty straightforward. I typically, those of you who've been around the channel have heard me say this before, but I typically install, do an install, and then or at least some portion of the install, and then off camera, and then once I know what the heck's going on, then I'll come back and do one on camera. That's not going to be the case here. We're all going to learn together here. So let's move over to the Talon, and we'll get started on this install. All right, so we're going to start inside the Talon. It's going to be a pretty simple deal in here, I think, to expose the upper shaft. It's obviously on the steering column there. I'm going to take this rubber seal out. It just pushes in there. Pretty simple. And then there's 4 push-ins that are holding this on. You'll see a couple down here in the bottom, a couple here once that's out. So we're going to start right there. Once that's done, then we'll have access to the bolts that are holding the upper shaft onto the splines on the motor and the steering column. Okay, we got the bolt out, connecting the upper shaft to the actual steering wheel, steering column, steering shaft, upper steering shaft, whatever you want to call it. And I want to come back and show you this. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to disconnect the bolt from the lower. It's going to be really hard to see, but try to do the best I can here. So the bolt's right in there, and I figured out with enough extensions you can actually get it from the outside. So let's get that out, and then the shafts will be free, and we will well, hopefully they'll be free if they're not stuck on the spline in some way. And we will move on to getting the motor out, and we're going to pull the original factory motor out with the shafts on it. All right, so now that the shafts are disconnected, we're going to get the motor out. And Super ATV, they just very nonchalantly say, "I'll remove the motor." So it's buried, and it's actually complicated by all my fuse box and extra wiring and second battery, and just everything right here is absolutely in the way. So there's 3 bolts there, a couple going that way, one down in there that probably no way you can see, one coming back the other way from in here. So I'll be wrestling with these bolts for just a little bit, and then we'll come back once we get this motor loose and pull everything out of there. All right, I want to come back and show you real quick. This third bolt, I ended up taking some push ends and I think it's a 5 mil, whatever those Allens are that are there, down, and pulling this panel down under the dash with just the right extension. You can't see it in there. I can't get the camera to focus on it, but anyway, you can see the socket, right? So in there, buried in there, is where the third bolt is. So with just the right extension, because you got to get all up in behind all of this, of course, and with this stuff loose on the bottom of the dash, you can actually get in there and get that bolt out. The jury is still out on exactly how I'm going to get that back in later, but first things first, let's get it out. All right, I wanted to got the motor out. For me, it turned out to be, I thought it was simpler just to take the shafts off of the motor and just take everything out in 3 pieces, which is what I did. So you got a lower shaft, upper shaft, Honda, and just worked out better for me. This was talked about actually in the first steps, but we've mounted the ECU to the ECU bracket, and this is the upper shaft, and we're gonna mount it to the motor before we put the motor in, and we're gonna mount the lower shaft to the rack before we put the motor in. But the main thing I wanted to do is just give you a comparison, just side by side here, of just the difference in mass between the Super ATV one and the Honda one. So it's a significant difference. I mean, my gosh, look at these. That output shaft on that thing's like 3/4, and this one is I measured it. I forgot now what it was. I think it's like 670 or something. So it's quite a bit less, and you can just see, man, it's just got to be a huge improvement. So all right, we're going to get this upper shaft on the motor. We're going to get the lower shaft on the rack and get ready to put the motor in, and we'll come back. Oh, first rule in shooting video, take the cap off. All right, y'all, it has been a while. What time is it?
15 to 4.
Bill says 15 to 4. So we've been at this for about 3 more hours today, and it works. Everything's in there, wired up, everything ready to go, and I must say that it works wonderfully. I don't obviously still got a bunch of buttoning up to do here, but our major fight was trying to get everything back together. And as far as I can see, I'm going to inquire with our friends at Super ATV, of course. But as far as I can see, the instructions are wrong, and it's wrong right here. So if you put the sliding splines to the EPS unit the way that is, it will not clear the bracket in behind the column. And I did pull the column out to make this happen, and that's the easiest way there is. Little finagling to reach the bolts on the side, but that's way easier. But this is wrong. This needs to be towards the motor, and this needs to be towards the steering wheel. Once we have that, then everything works perfect. And we're going to button it up the rest of the way here. All right, let's talk about wiring and such. Kind of final fitment here. So there's only 3 wires involved. So there's a heavy red wire. I have it going, the camera will focus. I have it going to my positive power post. The negative wire going to the negative power post. And there was several feet of wiring that I cut off. So they send you a harness way longer than you need. Okay, this fuse that's in here is for the EPS. It's on that main power wire for the EPS, so obviously you're going to cut that after it. That's why you don't need to go to the fuse box or anything there. You can actually go to the battery or to the winch wires, which are powering this post that I have going on here. It needs to be someplace where it can pull, where it has plenty of available power. The trigger wire is this white wire. You can barely see it right there, but it's coming right in here in my fuse box, and I've got that on a 10 amp fuse in here. It's actually, you can see it's actually says dome light there, so I have it on the same one as my dome light, and that's all the wiring that there is. There's a blue wire that's in the harness and it's not used. It says that in instructions, so just cut the blue wire off whatever you need to and tape it up inside the harness and just leave it there. These brackets have slots. All the adjustments here have slots, and what we did was we just pulled up on the motor as high as it would go, and that's where we left everything. The ECM, also the same story. It's slotted as well where it's going, and we have it as high as it would go too. It's also hard to see. These, by the way, you're probably not recognizing a lot of this stuff because I added all this. So these are the relays and such for the XTC, what was actually designed to be a bus bar, but I'm using this to power the fuse box here for all of that stuff. Of course, obviously that's the winch controller, and these are the winch wires coming in here. And yes, all of this added on stuff was and is very much in the way of this, but it worked out fine. It's just a bunch of wires in the way. So back here, the ECM, all the plugs on the back of the ECM, or all the plugs are on the back of the ECM. A little bit of a trick to get back there, but every plug there is an individual different plug, so there's no way to plug one in wrong. All the plugs will only go one way, so no way to mess that up. Like I said, these bolts are kind of a trick to get to, but obviously you can do it. But it's just really tight quarters in there. So once everything's in there, it's a really nice fit. You can see the lower shaft down there. Also, everything fits really nice. I'm really pleased with the way all that is, and like I said, wiring very much straightforward. Okay, one downfall to these kits, and pretty much all of them, I think. This one for sure is whenever you do this kit, the electronic power steering warning light is going to be on, and it's a simple matter to turn it off. I'll put a still in here in just a second to show this better because I've already done it and it's hard to see. But okay, this is the power steering ECM. These are the control wires. These are the power wires. This is going to look a little bit different on yours because I'd already changed this, trying to mod that helped it a little bit, but didn't help it a lot. So this wire here that I've put the white wire on it, this is a yellow wire with a green stripe. And like I said, I'll throw a still up right here. So that's the yellow wire with the green stripe. And that wire just needs to be grounded. So I literally just cut the wire. This is the other end of it. I've just wrapped it up with tape. And then I've attached this wire with some shrink wrap or heat shrink butt connector. And then you can see this is the main ground for the Talon, and I've literally just grounded it. So once you just simply ground that wire, then that will turn this light off. Let's fire it back up here. Okay, no EPS light now. So that's the simplest way. That's the simplest way to turn the light off. I'll throw another still up here in a second that has the wiring diagram so you can see what's going on there. You actually can run a relay there back to, there's a little tiny LED that's up by the motor, and that LED can be run through a relay back to here. And so if there's a problem, that it will actually operate this light. So instead of just, you're grounding it here, but it's going to be grounded through a relay that's going to be triggered by that light. So, or it's going to be ungrounded, I should say, by a relay that's triggered by that light to make the factory EPS light come on. My opinion is, if there's a problem with this power steering, I'm probably going to know it whether the light's on or not. So I just took the simplest route to just simply ground the wire and turn the light off. All right, chances are when you get everything back together, you're going to have to straighten the wheel. And super easy on the Honda. If you have, I have the aftermarket Hess quick release on my Dragonfire wheel, but it works the same on the factory wheel. There's just the center cap on the factory wheel will come out, and then you can see this nut from there. So this is I believe it's a 19 millimeter, and you can just loosen this nut. And then in automotive applications like regular cars and trucks, the splines, let's see if I can get it off of there one-handed. Oh, there we go. So these splines are keyed. In other words, there's a big flat spline that this can only go on one way on a regular car, but it's not like that on the Talon. It's just splines. And I know from experience where the wheel is, this little nub right here needs to be centered. So I'm going to put that on just like that, where this will lock the wheel in there straight up on mine. So now it's just a matter of putting the nut back on there, torquing it back down, putting the wheel on. Easier for you guys that have a stock wheel if you do this, because you can literally tell with the stock wheel. So just go drive the thing. If it needs to move a spline, then just take the nut off, pull the wheel off, turn it a spline to the right, left, whichever way it needs to go, and put it back on there. And like I said, if you do it the way that we did, which quite honestly is the only way I can see to do it. If somebody knows something more than that, and I'm sure somebody probably does, but just give me a comment down there if you do, if you can get it out. But I could not get the upper shaft in it without taking the column out, which is a simple deal. It's literally just taking off this actuator, bolt on each side. No big deal. The bolts are kind of tight to get to, but you can reach under the column and get there. So that was by far the simplest way to do it, as far as I'm concerned, and the easiest way to do it. So all you need to do, like I said, to straighten the wheel, is just literally take the nut off, pull the wheel off, and you'll be able to just wiggle it and pull it off. You don't need a puller or anything. And then just set the wheel back straight, go drive it. If it needs a little adjustment, just do it again till you get it where it needs to go. So super simple on that part. All right, I just wanted to show what this was like. All of y'all that's had these problems before know how tough this is, and it's just sitting out here in my driveway. It's almost dark. Sorry, I'm just trying to squeeze it in tonight. But I just want to show you the difference. So let's turn this thing on. Okay, it's just sitting still on asphalt before. You were strong arming it, to say the very least. And watch this. And I'm literally can turn the wheel wherever I want it to be with one finger. Perfectly still on asphalt. That, my friends, is an amazing difference. All right, we're back to put a period on the Super ATV EPS. I think it's a great kit. It certainly solves the problems that so many of us have had with the Talon power steering just dropping out completely or just being really, really stiff. And I think overall it's a really good kit, well worth the money. Not a difficult install. The mistake in the instructions notwithstanding, but it's not a difficult install. But you are working in some really tight places, so I'd say probably maybe 2.5 hours or something to do it without with the instructions corrected. And I've contacted Super ATV, and they do have the instructions corrected now, so you're not going to have that same problem. Really, the only thing that I don't like very well in the kit are these brackets that are slotted for the motor, and I would just like for it to have a straight hole in there, because I don't think the slots are really even necessary. What we did, we pulled the thing all the way to the top, just got a hold of the motor. Once it was bolted in there and loose, just pulled everything to the top and tightened everything down. That gave it the most clearance and looked the best to us. I don't know why they don't just do it that way, but anyway, that solved that problem. And like I said, overall, I think it's a really good kit. And I'm anxious to get out on the trail and see how it goes. I have all the confidence in the world it's going to be great, though. So I appreciate you watching. If you have any questions, comments, please leave those down below. If you like what you see or you want to follow us, then please do hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. It really helps us with YouTube. And thanks so much for watching, and we'll be back soon with more projects.